Is the crypto market going to continue its moon mission? Let's talk about it. So hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about the broader crypto market and if it seems likely that it's going to continue this impressive rally to the upside, or if some cooling off consolidation or maybe even short-term correction might be needed. So let's go ahead and get into it. So obviously Bitcoin being the biggest player makes sense to talk about it first. And Bitcoin in a lot of ways has been leading the charge this entire year. From the start of the year, it has been one of the strongest performers. Only the rare altcoin has outperformed Bitcoin over this whole time. And more recently, Bitcoin went on a tear here, cleared to new year-to-date highs. And as I record this on the 9th of November, Bitcoin is going up and looking like it's wanting to set in a new year-to-date high in the daily close once this would close later today. So quite impressive of a move. But I think the question then is, do we think this is just going to continue? Are we going to fill this wick to the upside up to around 38K and maybe even higher? A target that a lot of people are talking about right now is somewhere in the 40K range. And the reason for that is just that if you go back and look at the chart, the next logical level where you might expect some resistance would be somewhere around this area. If we can clear above these resistance zones here, what Bitcoin is currently testing, the next place you might be targeting is up here. And that's certainly possible, but there's one thing I'm watching that might suggest that if we did see that final push up, that might be about as high as we would expect to go, at least in the short to medium term. And that's one of the things I'm looking at here to think that is our trend confidence indicator over at our website, polaritydigital.io. So this is an indicator that's trying to tell you how confident you should be in a given trend. That's what it's really looking at. And ideally, specifically what it's trying to do is give you an early warning of when a trend is weakening. So let's go ahead and examine how the TCI has acted over this last year to give an idea of what it can do. So for example, the TCI, you'll notice that ever since the low here with the FTX crash, then throughout the lows here, notice how the TCI was trending up. And that was a suggestion that this downtrend we had seen going into those lows was weakening. And in fact, getting bullish on Bitcoin made sense. And indeed, that's what we ended up seeing, this big move to the upside. But then we noticed that the TCI was moving down aggressively while Bitcoin was still grinding up. Then indeed, we then saw a correction all the way back down to around 20K, 19K, that general area, before we rallied up in March. Then again, TCI declining while price went up and then ground down with it, setting in a higher low. Again, moving up, TCI moving down first, price kind of hanging out, setting at a slightly higher high here, and then moving down as well, down to this low. And then throughout this range down through here, you'll notice the TCI aggressively moving to the upside, and then sure enough, price then followed. But now what I'm watching is some potential weakness showing up on the TCI. Notice how it, ever since this peak up here to around 34.4K, it's now started to trend down even as prices moved up. And so one possibility is that we're getting towards a phase like this, where price could go and put in one final push to the upside like it did in these previous rallies here. But that might be kind of it. And so that's what I'm talking about, that if Bitcoin can push higher again, and maybe even target up towards the 40Ks, maybe that is that final push. And if we see that happen while the TCI continues to trend down, and especially if it starts to aggressively trend down like it has in the past, that might be a sign that weakness is showing up for Bitcoin and that a more notable consolidation / correction range might be coming for it. So that's one suggestion, that we might be getting nearer to the end of this rally for Bitcoin than being at the beginning. And I think what you might see is that if we did get up into the 40K range, you might see a lot of bears finally capitulate and get bullish. You'd probably see a lot of the people who are already bullish get kind of extreme and euphoric, calling for new all-time highs to be coming imminently. And that might just set the stage for us to actually go the other way. Usually when too many people get too extreme on one side, that tends to mark local tops, and that can send you down. And then likewise, if people get too extreme on the other side, that can mark bottoms, like what happened down over here. So obviously none of that's guaranteed. You should make your own opinions. Obviously none of that's financial advice, but that's just one scenario that I'm watching. And one of the indicators I'll be watching to see if that holds, or if that it remains a valid possibility, is going to be this trend confidence indicator. If you want to watch this for yourself, go over to our website, polaritydigital.io. You can access live data from our models and more over there for those who subscribe to our Polarity Digital Pro subscription service. All right, so then let's move on to Ethereum being the other big asset in the crypto space. Now, Ethereum has actually been rallying also, and notably today, Ethereum has been holding up quite a bit better than Bitcoin. Bitcoin has retraced much of its move that it made earlier on in the day. Ethereum so far is holding onto that. And this comes off the back of Ethereum pretty dramatically underperforming Bitcoin for a while. You'll see here, if we look at the ETH Bitcoin valuations, this is the price of ETH divided by the price of Bitcoin. Basically, if this is going up, it means Ethereum is outperforming Bitcoin. Going down means Bitcoin is outperforming Ethereum. And really, this entire year, Bitcoin has been outperforming Ethereum. This has just been trending down, 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 down. But notably, off of this possible support level down here, we're catching this bounce. And we're seeing that especially today, this big green candle to the upside, Ethereum outperforming Bitcoin by almost 5%. So it'll be interesting to see now if the focus shifts off of Bitcoin to some degree, maybe over to Ethereum, and it can go and move and maybe try to set its own year-to-date high, break above the highs from April. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And one of the things that we can look at to see how Ethereum might be better positioned than Bitcoin, at least in the shorter term, is again looking at the trends confidence indicator. Look what's happening now with the TCI for Ethereum. It trended up like we saw for Bitcoin, preceding this move here to the upside. But notice how it's continuing up. So unlike Bitcoin, where we're seeing the TCI start to show potential weakness, we're actually just seeing continued strength from the TCI for Ethereum, the continuation of this uptrend. And so as long as this continues to trend up, I'll see that as a sign of strength for Ethereum. That might be more indication that Ethereum has further to move in this run. And especially if you can break above this resistance, you might be targeting upside targets closer to the 2,500 level, or maybe even going up a little bit higher, maybe into the 3,000s if you can get above that. But I think the initial targets would be 23 to around 2,500 on Ethereum if you can break above the year-to-date high resistance here. So those are the bigger players. I think what we might see is Bitcoin getting closer to the end of its rally, and then maybe what you can see is that we have seen a bigger alt season so far, and that you might see some of the money flow into assets like Ethereum and then maybe continue on into altcoins as well. And we've already seen a number of altcoins perform very well. So the next asset I want to talk about here is Solana. Solana has done very well going into this recent rally. So off of the lows here in September, up as much as 177%, currently up 153% thereabout. So Solana has been very impressive in this rally. And so I think a question that you can ask with a lot of these altcoins is, will they just continue to rip? You know, will people just continue dumping money into them? Maybe people taking profits off of Bitcoin and Ethereum, moving into something like that. Or has this been about as much as you'd expect in the short term, and maybe some consolidation might be needed here? And I personally think, at least in the short term, the latter might make sense. So here what I'm showing you is our short-term upside downside potential indicator for Solana. So it's our short-term risk model. And basically higher values mean higher risk, lower values mean lower risk in the short term. So we're talking about days to weeks in the type of time frame this model looks at. And what you'll notice is that the short-term UDPI for Sol has gotten pretty extended, up at 2.52 currently. Really levels that we've seen act as resistance in the past multiple different times. We're right up at those roughly the same levels. So it would not shock me at all to see Solana slow down here, consolidate, maybe even have a bit of a correction before maybe in the medium to long term be able to move up further if we have this bullish sentiment in the market continue and have a continuation of appreciation for altcoins. So obviously not financial advice, but that's one of the things I'm looking at for Solana more shorter term. I think it taking a breath might make sense. Then the final asset I want to talk about here is Chainlink, or Link would be the token name. And Link has been incredibly impressive going on this run. We can see if we just take a reading from the September lows up to where it was, similar to Solana, up about 178% to the upside, currently trading up about 150% to the upside. So very impressive move by Link here. But then similarly, you can ask the same question. Will it just continue to rip to the upside, or might it need to catch its breath? Might it need to slow down? And we again just look at the short-term UDPI for Link, we can see that it has gotten very extended to the upside. It's currently trading at 4.07. The maximum value on the short-term UDPI is 5. So it's getting very close to the top of the scale. Basically what this means is it's realizing the majority of the upside potential that the model sees as plausible in the short term for Link. So it would not surprise me to see Link also have to consolidate, maybe even correct a bit, maybe try to set in a higher low, and then potentially be able to continue its moves to the upside. And so then looking kind of in the broader term then, I think what we might be seeing here is Bitcoin getting nearer to the end of its move up, but because we've seen this participation from altcoins, unlike what we've seen in past quote-unquote alt season, we've actually seen a lot of altcoins rip. We might get into that more traditional money flow you might expect type of environment from crypto, where once Bitcoin does set in its local high, whenever that ends up being, you might see those profits then flow into something like Ethereum, which could then catch up. And then you might see something like the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation continue to move to the upside in that scenario. And then you could potentially see money flow from Bitcoin directly, or then from Ethereum into the mid caps like Solana, which maybe they've consolidated by then, and then they can move up. Same thing with Link. And then maybe down into some of the more risky assets. And then you might expect a more prolonged correction or accumulation before another longer term move up. Now, a lot could happen to derail that, obviously. If we see broader markets collapse, if we see a recession form, anything like that could throw a monkey wrench into that possibility. But it's one that could happen. And certainly what we've seen that's new is a willingness of the market to actually move into altcoins, which we really didn't see the entire bear market. There, any move up from altcoins just quickly got sold. We've actually seen them be able to run more recently, which is a hopeful sign. All right, so nothing I've talked about is financial advice, of course. You can make your own evaluations of the data, but that's what I'm looking at right now. So if you want to view live data from our models and more, you can go to our website, partydigital.io. Link is in the description. If you like the content, remember to subscribe to the video, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, but indicators and more over there.